October 3, 2025. After 2 years of relentless war, Gaza stands in ruins, over 66,000 dead, families shattered, and a humanitarian crisis at its peak. The fate of 48 Israeli hostages still held in Gaza has fueled public anguish and political pressure in Israel, clashing with military objectives. International aid groups warn of catastrophe, as safe zones prove illusory under constant bombardment. Amid this devastation, a new diplomatic initiative emerges, led by former and current U.S. President Donald Trump. His comprehensive peace proposal has drawn a cautiously positive response from Hamas, encouragement from the UN, and mixed reactions from Israel. For the first time in years, the focus shifts from war to the possibility of peace, an opportunity both fragile and profound. On September 29, 2025, President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stood side by side at a historic press conference, unveiling a sweeping 20-point peace proposal that immediately captured the world's attention. This ambitious plan, years in the making, was presented as a comprehensive blueprint to end decades of conflict and reshape the future of the Middle East. At its core, the proposal calls for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, the rapid release of all hostages, and a broad, carefully coordinated prisoner exchange. These urgent first steps are designed to build trust and create a sense of momentum, signaling a genuine break from the cycles of violence that have defined the region for generations. The plan also introduces a temporary international stabilization force, led primarily by Arab nations, to restore order and security in Gaza. This force would operate alongside a newly formed civilian administration, which transitions authority to a Palestinian committee, all under the oversight of an international board of peace, chaired, notably, by Trump himself. This structure aims to ensure both local legitimacy and global accountability. Notably, Hamas is excluded from any future role in governance under this plan. Instead, the proposal promises a clear, internationally supported pathway toward Palestinian self-determination and eventual statehood, offering hope to millions who have long yearned for a sovereign future. The framework is designed as a package deal. Each step is tightly linked to the others, making progress in one area dependent on progress in all. This interconnected approach is meant to address the root causes of the conflict, break the entrenched cycle of retaliation, and ensure that no single party can derail the process. Yet, the plan's success hinges on something far more elusive than signatures on paper: mutual trust and a willingness to implement difficult compromises. After years of bloodshed, suspicion runs deep, and every side faces immense pressure from their own communities. This is a detailed and carefully constructed roadmap, but every step forward is fraught with risk, uncertainty, and the heavy weight of historical grievances. The ghosts of past failed agreements loom large, reminding all involved of the challenges ahead. As the world watches with bated breath, the question remains: can this ambitious blueprint finally deliver the peace that has eluded so many for so long? Or will it become just another chapter in a long history of missed opportunities? At the heart of the plan lies a bold first step: an immediate, comprehensive ceasefire, intended to bring a sudden halt to the violence that has gripped the region for months. This ceasefire is not just a pause in fighting, but a crucial opportunity to build trust and open the door to further negotiations. Central to the agreement is the release of all Israeli hostages who have been held in Gaza, within just 72 hours of the ceasefire taking effect. For many families, this moment represents the end of a long nightmare and the hope of reunion. In a reciprocal gesture, Israel would release 250 Palestinian prisoners, many of whom are serving life sentences, marking a significant concession and a gesture of goodwill. In addition, 1,700 other Palestinians detained since 2023 would also be freed, a move that is expected to have a profound impact on thousands of families across the West Bank and Gaza. This carefully balanced exchange is designed to address the core demands of both sides, paving the way for the next critical phase: a massive surge of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Under international supervision, food, medicine, and essential supplies will reach those most in need, offering relief after months of hardship. The plan goes further, requiring the dismantling of Hamas's military infrastructure. This process will be overseen by an independent international body to ensure transparency and build confidence among all parties. Individual Hamas members who choose to disarm and publicly renounce violence could be granted amnesty, providing a path back into civilian life for those willing to lay down their arms and embrace peace. These coordinated steps are intended not only to end the immediate crisis, but also to address urgent humanitarian needs and ensure that Hamas can no longer pose a military threat in the future. The hope is to lay the groundwork for lasting stability and recovery. Yet, the greatest challenge remains, ensuring that every party involved upholds their commitments and that the process unfolds quickly, transparently, and without obstruction from spoilers. With so much at stake, lives, families, and the future of the region, the world is watching, hoping that this fragile agreement can hold and that a new chapter of peace can finally begin. On October 3rd, Hamas issued a carefully worded response to the international proposal, neither a full acceptance nor an outright rejection, but a willingness to negotiate based on the framework of the Trump plan. Their statement was measured, signaling both caution and a recognition of the gravity of the moment. For the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope that dialogue might be possible, even if the path ahead remained uncertain. Hamas agreed to the core humanitarian elements of the proposal, including a significant hostage-for-prisoner swap, and signaled a readiness to hand over Gaza's administration to a technocratic authority, one that would be backed by a coalition of Arab and Islamic nations. This was a notable shift, suggesting Hamas was willing to step back from direct governance if it meant relief for Gaza's people and a chance at stability. However, the group stopped short of unconditional surrender. Instead, Hamas insisted on further negotiations about Gaza's long-term future, the rights of Palestinians, and guarantees for their political participation. They made it clear that any agreement must address the broader aspirations of the Palestinian people, not just immediate security concerns. This conditional yes has shifted the diplomatic landscape, putting new pressure on international mediators to bridge the remaining gaps. The world's attention is now focused on whether these conditions can be reconciled, and if the momentum for peace can be sustained. Hamas's leaders are under immense pressure, both from within Gaza, where the humanitarian crisis deepens by the day, and from their regional allies, who are urging compromise. They recognize Gaza's dire state, but are also determined to preserve their political relevance and ensure their people's voices are not sidelined. Across Gaza and the wider region, ordinary people watch anxiously, hoping that this opening can be transformed into a lasting peace. The sense of anticipation is palpable, as families and communities yearn for an end to the cycle of violence and uncertainty. The next moves by the US, Egypt, and Qatar, key players in the mediation process, will be decisive. Their ability to broker compromise and build trust between the parties could determine the fate of the entire region. The stakes could not be higher: peace, with the promise of rebuilding and hope, or a return to devastation and despair. The world holds its breath, waiting to see which path will be chosen. Despite progress, Hamas's response sidesteps key demands, most notably, disarmament and the destruction of its military infrastructure. Israel insists on Hamas's complete dismantlement, while Hamas wants a role in future Palestinian politics. The Trump plan excludes Hamas from governance, but Hamas seeks inclusion in a broader national framework. Hamas also questions the 72-hour timeline for hostage release, citing logistical challenges in a war-torn landscape. These are not minor details. They strike at the heart of the conflict. Bridging these divides will require tough compromises and deft diplomacy. The door to peace is open, but the path is perilous. The United Nations quickly welcomed Hamas's willingness to negotiate, with Secretary-General Guterres calling it an encouraging sign. The UN's endorsement lends legitimacy to the process and urges all parties, Hamas, Israel, and the US, to seize this rare opportunity. For the UN, a ceasefire and unimpeded humanitarian aid would be a breakthrough after years of suffering in Gaza. The organization's support helps build global consensus and puts pressure on both sides to negotiate in good faith. Yet, the UN remains wary, mindful of past failures and the deep mistrust between the parties. Its role will likely focus on aid coordination, ceasefire monitoring, and possibly supervising agreements. For now, the UN is a powerful voice for peace, urging compromise and vigilance. The world's expectations are high, but so are the risks. Israel's response is measured and complex. Prime Minister Netanyahu publicly supports the plan, citing its promise to defeat Hamas and return the hostages. Yet, he reiterates opposition to Palestinian statehood, balancing U.S. demands with pressure from his right-wing coalition. Netanyahu warns, Israel's acceptance is conditional on Hamas's rapid compliance, especially on hostages and disarmament. The threat of renewed military action remains, keeping pressure on Hamas. Meanwhile, hostage families in Israel demand action, making the deal politically urgent. The government faces a volatile mix of hope, skepticism, and domestic pressure. Egypt and Qatar, the key mediators, have welcomed Hamas's response and Trump's call for an immediate halt to bombing. Their trusted channels are vital for navigating the complex negotiations ahead. President Trump, ever direct, urges Israel to stop bombing and focus on the hostage deal, while warning Hamas of dire consequences if talks fail. The Palestinian Authority, sidelined for years, sees an opening to regain influence in Gaza under the plan's framework. Internationally, support is broad, from European leaders calling for an end to violence to activists demanding action. This alignment isolates spoilers and builds momentum for peace. The world's eyes are on Cairo, Doha, and Washington. The coming days are critical. A narrow window for peace has opened, but obstacles remain. Mediators must urgently bridge gaps on disarmament, governance, and the logistics of the hostage exchange. Israel demands Hamas's total removal from power. Hamas seeks survival as a political force. The challenge: find a compromise that ends the war without total capitulation. For Gazans, a ceasefire and aid offer hope after years of devastation. For Israeli families, the chance to bring loved ones home. The stakes are immense. Peace could reshape the region. Failure could plunge it back into catastrophe. The world watches, holding its breath. The next move will decide the fate of thousands, and perhaps the future of the conflict itself.